This is my newest batch of scarves. They are just gorgeous, and I am over the moon with how they've turned out. It took quite a bit to get to this point, and I'm going to show you over 2 videos because there's quite a lot to share of how these all came to be. There's layers and layers of colors and textures, botanical prints, which are contact prints of leaves and rusty bits onto the linen and the silk. And I'm going to show you in this first video the botanical print process and how that all gets started, and then after that we'll move on to the indigo. But right now, first I'm starting with iron water. I think the iron really does some interesting things onto the fabric, and this is a jar of rusty nails that have been soaking for a very long time in a mix of just plain vinegar and water. So that makes this iron water, and then I'm going to soak some leaves and flowers. First I'm going to soak some marigold flowers. Marigolds by themselves do really nice things, but on the silk and on the linen, when you soak the marigolds in the iron water, it makes this beautiful bronze color, and the prints that you get from them, well, you'll see, but it just makes a really beautiful shade of bronze. And here's my arsenal for the botanical prints. Marigold flower soaking, along with ferns and some other leaves, rusty bits, and wire to wrap everything up. And here are the leaves I'll be using for the botanical prints. It's an amazing assortment. Got blackberry, all sorts of things I've collected off of the property. There's a variety of maple and oak, sassafras and tulip poplar and sourwood. It's just amazing. I've got 9 different scarves in various stages of being dyed. Some have been dyed before. And that's the great thing about this process. I can dye these bits of fabric. I can dye them multiple times. Here's a piece that's pristine. Here's a piece that's been dyed with walnut and marigolds. But each time I wet the fabric down and lay them out in one long piece, just the wetting it down, and then here's with some weights, and that just makes it easier to keep the fabric in place. And when I'm starting off with a pristine piece, a piece that's not been dyed before, I like using these rusty bits. I love the graphic element of the strips of metal that have been soaked and dyed multiple times. They get this wonderful patina. And then they really do leave interesting marks on the fabric after they're dyed. And that's one of my favorite elements of the scarves that I do, are these beautiful graphic elements with the rusty bits. But it takes a bit of arranging. You know, you have to have it just right. You know, you want the balance and the rhythm, and it's, you know, so it changes, and then it takes a few minutes, but when it's right, I think it's a beautiful element. Now it's time to start adding the botanicals. I've got all sorts of things, and I never know how it's going to turn out. It's always a mystery. When I'm laying out the botanicals, it's gotten to where it feels like a dance. It's this rhythmic process of going back and forth and looking for the right things, or actually there is no right thing. It's all just intuition and just seeing what looks nice and trying to balance it out. And here, the scarf that was dyed previously with walnut and some rusty bits, and you know, the results were not exciting, so I thought, well, I'm going to dye this again and see how it goes. But it's just a process, and it's absolutely all intuition. The marigolds here, these have not been soaked in iron. These are just straight marigolds, but they always provide a beautiful print. And I'm not going for pristine prints here. I'm not going for exact prints of the leaves. I want more of an abstract kind of a watercolor look. And so it's all layers and layers and layers. And it's just, it's a total leap of faith. I just never know what's going to happen. But it's a beautiful leap of faith. And for a little extra metallic interest, I tend to roll these up on pieces of copper pipe. The metals are supposedly add a little bit more to the colors, and it's just an added element, and makes, who knows what it if it actually does anything or not. But it's a challenge to roll things up and keep everything in place, adjusting as necessary. Things fall off. Maybe, I've got some blank spots here, so need to add a few more things. This was a piece of linen that, again, like the other piece of silk, had been dyed with walnuts, actually a little bit too much walnut, hence the really dark purple. So I'm trying to make it a little more interesting. And then here with this is linen again, and silk, and so always linen and silk. And things just dropping off that want to be put onto the piece of fabric. So if Mother Nature wants that leaf on there, I'll add it on there. And then final rolling everything up, final adjustments, adding a couple more leaves. Just I like a little bit of blank space, but I'm going for an interesting watercolor effect here. Now that I've got everything all rolled up and bundled as tight as I can make it, I'm going to fold everything and try to get it as secure as I can. And then I'm going to start wrapping it and closing it up tightly. All nice and snug. And then I like to use wire. This is baling wire that I got from the hardware store, and so it ends up getting rusted and also gets that patina of the other rusty bits. Sometimes I use string, and I see a lot of other people doing botanical prints that use string and cord, but I really like the element of the rusted wire. I think it just looks interesting, and so that's what I tend to do, and get it nice and secure on there. Try to get it as tight as possible, because this is to get the colors to transfer. It needs to be snug, and sometimes I get it snug and sometimes I don't, but I get it as tight as I can. And then once everything's all tied up, then I'll put it into my little enamel pan and cover it with water, and then let it simmer for a couple of hours. I put the weights on there to keep the pieces submerged. And now here's a couple of the bundles that have been cooking for a while, and now it's time to unwrap them and see what happened. Like I said, it's always a surprise. I never know what's going to happen. Trying to recover all the little rusty pieces. I like using those over and over again. And then the leaves, and you can see this is, it's a nice bronze color. I'm not getting much color, but it's, and when the pieces are wet, it's really hard to tell what they're going to do. They always look much better after they've dried. Or hopefully they're going to look better when they've dried. lots of leaves, a few rusty bits. And like I said, this was over several days, so this has been filmed over, probably it was over a couple of weeks. And so there's, again, the linen scarves and the silk scarves, and they're they're all just really different, and layers of the leaves and the colors, and multiple times dyeing. And I'm looking at this one, and and again, they're still not quite as interesting as what I want them to be. So I will be dyeing these again with the indigo, and that's going to be in the next video. But for now, you get to see, this is the interim of the dyeing process. So that's the linen that is hanging, and then the silk. Trying to get all the last little bits of the botanicals off of there, of the leaves and things, and then let them dry and see how they look. It is beautiful to look at them as they waft in the breeze, and then with all the beautiful fall leaves in the background. These were just glorious days that I was able to work on these. Then they're still they're pretty interesting, but like I said, I'm going to dye these again with the indigo. So this is the middle part, but I think I've got a good start, and then they will, I think they can only get better. And it's it's a fun thing, and it's just great to share. And so here's the indigo. It's all simmering, and the magic and the alchemy of indigo is happening, and that's going to be happening in the next video. So stay tuned. I'll be back.